Good morning in the Mumbai News Center. I'm Sonal Bhutra and you're watching Power Breakfast. Those are the top headlines and big ones at that. But before we get into greater detail in all of them, first up, let's take a look at what the Asian markets are doing. Taking cue from the global markets, that is the US markets, they are largely lower. The Hang Seng sitting with cuts of 0.6%. We have Taiwanese index, which is seeing a sharper cut, down around 1.6%. Across the board, their selling is what we are seeing. Shanghai is down 0.2%. Kospi is down 0.4%. And this is after the retail sales for the month came in lower in the US. And that raised fears that, yes, there are fears of recession. And that's the reason across the globe, markets are under a lot of pressure. And SGX Nifty, as a result of which, is indicating that the start for our own markets, well, that could be deep in the red. A 64-point downtick after yesterday's fall is what SGX Nifty is indicating. And broad-based sell-off on Wall Street as recession fears intensify, with the Dow Jones sliding over 700 points, notching its worst day since September, the S&P 500 down over 2.5%, and the Nasdaq Composite closing with a nearly 3.5% cut. CNBC's Bertha Coombs gets us a wrap of all the action on Wall Street.
It's the biggest drop for stocks in more than a month, as a bigger-than-expected drop in retail sales in November added to fears that the U.S. is headed for a serious recession, even as the Federal Reserve is keeping the pedal to the metal, saying more interest rates are coming, those interest rate hikes, because inflation isn't under control yet. The Dow closing down 764 points. That's a 2.25% drop. The S&P 500 ended down 2.5%, while the Nasdaq saw the biggest downfall, down more than 3.25%. Meantime, a big test coming up for Walt Disney. Its new Avatar sequel opening today here in the U.S. James Cameron's The Way of the Water is expected to generate North American box office sales of between $150 and $175 million, which would be the third biggest opening weekend this year. But that may only be part of the story. The original Avatar started slowly back in 2009, and it made a lot of its money from fans who saw it more than once in the theaters, keeping it in the theaters for 8 months. With streaming these days, that doesn't happen. That's the action from here in the U.S. market. Now back to you in Mumbai.
Okay, all right. It's time to get you some important opinion coming in from Morgan Stanley's Mike Wilson and Yardeni Research's Edward Yardeni.